Welcome, film fans, physical media collectors, Criterion Collection fans. I've got a good one for you today. Night Moves, Gene Hackman. I'm so glad this is in the collection. It's unfortunate that shortly before this entered the collection, Gene Hackman passed away. But what a great film in its own right to celebrate his life, and one that I think maybe has fallen under the radar just a bit. Of course, I have long praised his performance in Unforgiven as Little Bill Daggett, my favorite performance in Western movie history, among some pretty darn good ones. So I'm just thrilled for another Gene Hackman movie to be in here. And I kind of like this cover. Some people may not. They might think it's a little bit too simplistic, but I think it works really well at establishing the mood and the tone. So what is Night Moves about? It's really about a detective who's not the best detective falling apart. That's what it's really about. But technically it's about Harry Mosby, played by Gene Hackman, and he's in this I don't want to call it a terrible marriage, but it's not really working out. And he is wrapped up in this investigation. This movie star wants her daughter located, and that takes him to the Florida Keys, and he uncovers more and more stuff like you would expect in some kind of film noir, okay? Neo-noir, if you will. I have a few parts of this that I like better than others, but for the most part, for me, this thing really clicks, and it's really among the ones I really, truly like in the genre. I think for a lot of folks, this might be in their, like, A tier, but not necessarily their S tier, you know? You know the video game terminology, like S tier, A tier? But for me, I like it as much as most that I've seen. What I like most about it is the script. It's sardonic, it's cynical. Let me tell you a couple of lines here, okay? I don't usually just read lines, but these two are just worth noting. So there's a character who says, "Where were you?" to the other character. Character one says, "Where were you when Kennedy got shot?" Character two says, "Which Kennedy?" Character one says, "Any Kennedy." And when you look at the way that plays out, like, these characters will talk about something super serious, like an assassination of two different major political figures. It almost like it doesn't mean anything that more than the next drink that they're going to have. There's a part where something traumatic happens, and almost immediately afterward, a couple of the characters are drinking and dancing. There's a spot where this guy gets really mad while he's drunk, but he almost immediately apologizes for an action he takes, almost as if he's used to this habit he has of habitually abusing people, and he's learned to control his own drinking without actually controlling his own drinking. And the script really is something you're going to enjoy if you like your cynicism, which I do. I could see Billy Wilder fans, for example, being a fan of this, although it's a little bit more naturalistic, I want to say, or it's just the kind of conversation you would almost hear out of regular everyday people. There are even there's a part here where there's this, like, suggestion that someone has been in relations with a mother and a daughter, and even that is kind of a joke to that person. There's a scene where a younger character played by Melanie Griffith has, like, sunglasses on, and the way she sits in a car, it almost looks like Jodie Foster from Taxi Driver. It's got that tone sometimes to it. At the same time, the film is pretty darn relaxing, and actually I really like that about it. So a lot of this takes place in the Florida Keys, and I'm just like, for a film noir, you might expect to constantly be, like, disturbed and on edge, and certainly the film does go into that territory where things do get dark. I mean, of course it does, but for parts of it, you're just kind of like, man, I want to go back to the Keys and scuba dive or something, you know, or I want to go sit by the ocean or just relax. It has a way of lulling you to sleep a little bit, and I think that's genius because, as Mosby, here played beautifully by Hackman, is investigating things, I feel like he's lulled a little bit to sleep by the beauty of not only the area, but another woman he runs into, and, you know, the whole thing is sort of leaves you enchanted in the way that I think he is, especially this, I don't want to call it a side plot, but it is kind of a side plot with his wife and that marriage. Some of the conversations about their marriage and how that plays out are so honest and frank that I really believe someone's going to be watching this film and they're going to be having trouble with their spouse and it's going to hit them like a ton of bricks and they're just going to turn the movie off because it's too real. In some ways, the conversations will veer into territory that should be much more consequential than the characters seem to want to admit or can admit to themselves. Again, like I was talking about with the Kennedy dialogue. Gene Hackman in this film, as is usual, displays any range of emotions you can imagine effortlessly. There is one scene where he's watching a ball game and he knows something that another character doesn't necessarily know he knows, and he's trying not to give it away. And the way his emotions run across his face, I don't know how he does it. I don't know how he's able to convey so much with just a few different, movements of his eyes and mouth. And I don't know the acting terms for it there, but he certainly is effective. As are all the actors in this. It's a really good movie. The colored grain is important. Pay attention to that if you haven't seen it and you watch it. This is the same director, Arthur Penn, who directed The Miracle Worker and Bonnie and Clyde. If you like the pair dynamics of Anne Bancroft and her co-star, I can't think of the name right now. And if you like the pairing dynamics of Bonnie and Clyde, Faye Dunaway and Warren Beatty, you're going to see a few of those kind of pairings in here as well. The one thing I would say, the plot is a little tough to follow, and that has sometimes been not necessarily, I don't know if it's like a criticism, but I do think it turned some people off originally when this did come out in the 70s, because the film isn't as much about who done it as what is it doing to Gene Hackman's character. And if you're really trying to catch all the clues and figure everything out, I think you're going to have a lesser experience. Roger Ebert and Gene Siskel talked a little bit about this, and Ebert, it took him a few times to really grasp the story, and I don't think Gene did. He admitted. There is a quote from Roger Ebert's Great Movies review, because he has this on his Great Movie list. And Ebert, I love the way he describes this. He said, quote, "There is a profound disconnect between his investigation and what is really happening. And essentially the movie shows him acting like a private eye while the case unfolds independently in front of him." And so don't be afraid if you don't know what's going on sometimes any better than the other characters, like Mosby. And he's trying to just work his way through a series of lies, and he's not super successful. And he becomes a sort of every man that any of us can relate to. He's no mastermind, and he just gets dumped on throughout the film. Great, a really good, strong movie for some people. They're going to like this better than others, but I love films like this, especially these really thoughtfully written 70s movies are real special to me. So those are my thoughts. I would definitely buy this. If you're a film noir fan, you got to buy it, hands down. You're a Gene Hackman fan, got to buy it, hands down. If you're indifferent to those two things, maybe not. 70s fans of classic 70s cinema, definitely pick it up. If you like the review today, let me know by clicking that like button, and tell me something else about Gene Hackman in the comments or the film in general. And, subscribe if you haven't, because I cover lots of Criterion Collection stuff, lots of Western stuff, and just anything I love about movies. We'll see you next time on Cody in the Cinema.